So what is DAX? So DAX, as you all know, stands for Data Analysis Expressions. It's a programming language of Power BI, Microsoft SQL Server Analysis Services, and Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel. And it was developed in 2010, right? So when first introduced, it was introduced for SSAS and Microsoft Power Pivot. But because Power BI is nothing but an extension of these two in some sense, so this is the primary programming language of Power BI as well, right? So where do we use DAX in Power BI, right, is the question. So all the calculations that we do, all the computations that we do on the data in Power BI is done through data analysis expressions, right? So it helps you build the complex data scenarios which are otherwise very expensive to build using other tools. So it has this tremendous calculation capabilities on simple to complex data models, which will really save the time and the effort that you need to build some complex data scenarios, right? The other thing is that DAX is a functional language, right? By functional language, we mean that it's not a typical programming language like Python or like C, C++, where you have these concepts of statements, loops, where you run a part of the code again and again till the condition is met. So it's not like that. In DAX, you have some predefined functions, and you have to call those functions by passing on the relevant arguments, and the results that those functions, after their call is complete, give you is essentially the result of your final calculations that you will essentially show to your audience, right? So just remember that it's a functional language. It's not a typical programming language, which also makes it easy to learn and to adopt. You know, it's, I mean, relatively easier than programming languages, but it's still requires some learning curve if you want to go to the complex end of DAX calculations. Another point is that DAX is always run on a data model, which means that you have to have a data model in place over which you will write all your DAX expressions. And DAX expressions are written over the columns of a table, right? So this means that you might have seen in Excel, you can write different expressions for different cells within the same column, but that is not possible in DAX. So in DAX, in a single column, you can only write a single expression which will be true for all the rows or all the cells within that column, right? So you just have to remember this is a property of DAX, that it works over the columns of the table and not the individual rows in the table, right? Although, you know, there are some DAX functions which can help you iterate row by row, but the expression that you write is still a single expression and not separate expressions for each row. So we'll study more and deep dive into the data modeling to see what are the essential components of data modeling before we dive more into DAX functions and DAX syntaxes. Thank you.